the podcast nowhere near Hollywood. It's Afternoon Coffee with Mike and Tim.
Hey, that was good. What I was thinking was maybe welcome to the Afternoon Coffee Podcast with Mike and Tim.
Nice try, boys, but this is how it should sound. This is the Afternoon Coffee Podcast with Mike and Tim.
All right, thank you, Heather. We're going to pick up with part 2 of our interview with Lynette Smith, the author of How to Write Heartfelt Letters to Treasure for Special Occasions and Occasions Made Special. So here we go.
So you covered also that a text and email, it would suffice. However, it's just not, it's good, but it's not as personable as a letter with your signature on it, right? I mean, it's just,
right.
It makes it, but it really doesn't do it, you know?
I mean, the email, you can write the same thing in an email that you would in a letter, but you're taking the risk that the email's going to be lost. And it's also not pretty.
Yeah,
you can make this thing pretty, for posterity, not just a printed out email. So you could maybe start it as an email if you really want to. I mean, that could be handy if you're writing to a military service member, okay? But why don't you take it and make a pretty version to give to that person when they're on leave next time, that they can save somewhere.
Yeah, that's
not
real
out
good.
in the field, but save somewhere important for future. That is the thing. And, again, it's tangible. You can hold it. And unless there's a fire, I admit, a fire could happen. Unless there's a fire, you're not going to lose it. You're going to put it in a safe, special place for posterity.
So this would work also for letters of apology, right? I mean, it'd be better just to sign it and, to send a letter like that, right?
Yes. I've got the last chapter of my book happens to be called Mending a Torn Relationship. And that's a situation where you write that letter from the heart, from a place of love, from a place of forgiveness or asking to be forgiven, heartfelt, start to finish, but positive. And you don't walk up to their front door and say, here's a letter for you I'd like to read to you. No, you don't do that because they're likely to slam the door on you. Okay?
Yes.
They don't know what it is. It's better to put it in the mail and let them read it in private and mull it over and think about it. Now, the results are not guaranteed, but the odds are improved that you're going to be able to mend that relationship by throwing that olive branch out and letting them consider it in their own quiet space.
Sure.
That's good. That's tremendous.
Yeah, because especially if you're apologizing to somebody and it does hit them in the heart, they may not want to let you see their emotion at that point. You know what I mean? Because it could be a raw situation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, that's fantastic. These are such great ideas. My goodness. I mean, I just wish that I had come across a lot of this stuff years ago when, I don't know. I've had 3 friends die in the last 2 years, and it's like, when they're your age, the one guy was a little bit older, but the one guy was a year older than me. The other guy was almost 20 years younger than I was. 37 years old, had the flu, went to bed, didn't wake up. It was, but it's like, you just don't, then you search your mind and you go through your text messages and it's like, did I ever, how did we end, because you know how it is, real life happens. You don't talk for a couple of months.
Regret?
Or
you think, dang, if I had only told him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too late. But you know what? It is not too late. Believe it or not, it's not too late. Because you can still write a letter to that deceased person. And you can pour out your heart about the things that you valued about that person and how he or she made a difference in your life or in the lives of others. And now here you have this letter and you're going, right, but he's dead. What do I do with it? Well, some ideas might be go into the mountains next to a stream and read the letter aloud. Go out to the beach at sunset and read the letter aloud. Go into a quiet room and light a couple of candles and read the letter aloud. I come from the opinion that when people die, it's only their shell that died and their soul lives on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And my feeling is also that by lending a degree of ceremony to the reading of this letter, you've gotten the attention of that soul for that time. And it's not wasted that you're reading the letter.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic for yourself, and it's appropriate for the soul that has passed on. Well, for the person who's passed on, the soul is still there, absorbing it and being grateful for your gratitude. And after you read that letter, depending on the nature of what's inside, is it extremely, extremely private? You don't want another living soul to read that letter? If so, if you're by that mountain stream or at the ocean, you can shred it into small pieces and throw them into the stream or the ocean. Or you can bury it at a place that nobody else is ever going to find it. So you can dispose of the letter in that way that's still respectful no matter what.
Sure.
Or if it's not extremely private in what you've written, that person's spouse or children might appreciate having that letter so they know what you valued about that person.
Or if you're Elon Musk, you could send it up in a rocket ship. Either way.
You could do that. Yeah. Are you that guy?
You could do that either way.
In your fondest dreams.
I could tie it to a helium balloon and send it up. That's kind of my budget, but I think we could do that.
Well, you could do that, but they have this thing about balloons these days. They get all mad when you do it. So don't tell anybody. Okay?
You tear up paper and throw it in a stream, you might get tackled too. So it doesn't really,
Well, private, very private. You're the only one there.
Yeah, we live in different days, that's for sure.
Tiny little
different
pieces.
Days.
Officially, we're not advocating this, but
right.
do whatever you feel.
So here's one thing we did years ago. This was back in 1998, 1999. Lynette, we created
back in the olden days.
Back in the old days, when everybody was at home, we did a time capsule, and we haven't opened it yet. We sealed it, and it's put away somewhere in the house here. But we did a time capsule, and we had a micro recorder, a micro tape recorder, and then we put our voices on there and stuff. Then we did little mementos and papers and things like that. So, and we sealed it. So there's no definite date when we're going to open it, but that's kind of along the lines of what you're thinking here, I think, and that'll be great memories in the future, so we can reflect on that.
Sure, and I'd like to add a story of my own that ties into that.
Yes,
we got some new bedroom furniture about a year ago, and I was transferring contents from one nightstand to the other, and that's where I keep all my little keepsakes. And amongst all of those things, I found an audio cassette, and on it said, "From Granny to Byron." Byron's my son. And I went, I felt horrible. My heart just sank, because this is something she recorded back in 1982, 83 when he was a toddler. And she said, give this to him when he becomes a young man. So I saved it. It's about a 30-minute recording. I saved it, and I forgot I had it. I never gave it to Byron. And I went, and he's just about to turn 40 next month or 2 months from now. And I'm thinking,
he's still a young man.
Well, he's young at heart. But I mean, I think I still should have done. I was really giving myself a guilt trip. And then I went, wait, Ben, that's my husband. Do you know how to change the audio cassette recording into an MP3? And he says, yeah. And I said, could you do that for me, please, for this? And he says, sure. Because my friend Flora had just told me about, well, first of all, she hadn't just told me. Here's how this came down. So he made the MP3 recording, and I distributed that not only to my son, but also to my sister, my brother. This was Granny's voice we had. She died in 1986. And anyway, it was just really cool. And then I was telling my friend Flora that afternoon about that, and she says, there's a website that does automated transcription from an MP3 file.
Really?
You could have something in writing too. And I said, really? She says, yeah. And it's Temi, TEMI.com. And I went there, and she says, it doesn't really cost much either. So I had this MP3 recording, and I went there. She says it's 10 cents a minute. Now it's gone to 25, but that's still not a killer. For audio minute, that's a steal. Yeah. And so I went there expecting to pay 10 cents a minute. It would cost me a whole darn $3 to get this transcription, right? And here's the sign on the opening page that says, get your first transcription free. And I said, whoa, a $3 coupon. All right.
All right.
And so I uploaded the file, and it says, now wait about 5 minutes for a 30-minute transcription, right?
Oh, my.
Wait about 5 minutes, and you'll get an email with a link to your transcription. I went, okay. And it was about 5 minutes, and I got the link, and I went there, and on screen it looked like just anything. Words are on the screen, but it's got pause buttons and play buttons and so on. And it would highlight the words, and my grandmother's voice was speaking as it was highlighting the words. And if I went, oh, they got that word wrong, I could click the pause, I could go click over into the text, fix the text, and then click any word, and my grandmother would resume speaking from that word, even if I had backtracked. Oh. So I spent about an hour and a half cleaning that up, and when I was done, it says, okay, now you can download this into Microsoft Word and do whatever you want with it. And I went, is that cool or what?
That is cool.
So I was able to provide a transcript to the same people that I had given the audio recording to. That was just really cool. So I wanted to share that. And but here's the lesson. I have to say this. It maybe wasn't so late. He wasn't a young man anymore. But you know what? If I had given him that audio cassette when he was 21, he'd have lost it, or he wouldn't have had the technology to play it.
Right.
There.
Absolutely. That's so cool. We were talking off the air, and can you talk a little bit about what you did with your dad as far as his stories?
Sure.
I would love, that was fascinating to me. Yeah.
Yeah. It was 2007, and it was coming up on Thanksgiving. And the tradition at Thanksgiving is we would go, he lived about 45 minutes away. We'd go pick him up that day, and he'd come over to our house for the Thanksgiving dinner, and he'd spend the night, and the next morning we'd take him home again. Well, this particular year, we asked him ahead of time, since our son Byron was going to be in town from Arizona at the time, we said, Daddy, you've always told such great stories. Would it be all right if we recorded you telling those stories? And he said, why, sure. And you could tell he was pleased to be asked. It was really, really neat. Yeah. So he came over. And so Friday morning, my son and I were his audience. I had a little MP3 recorder next to us, and we had a list of 11 stories that we were going to have him tell. So we'd say, okay, the next story, Daddy, is about this and this and this. And he'd say, oh, yeah, let me think a minute. He'd say, okay, I'm ready. So then I'd turn the recorder on, and when I'd see the counters start to count, I'd say, okay, Daddy, you can talk now. And he'd tell his story, and then he'd pull a Forrest Gump at the end and say, well, that's just about all I know to say about that. So we'd stop the recorder. And so that was one story, and we did that 11 times. And then he says, anything else you guys want to know about while we're here? And my son, bless him, he said, well, Granddad, I always wondered how you met and married Grandma. And I went, oh, wow. And he says, well, just a minute. Let me think about it, and then we'll do that. And so he told that 12th story about how he met and married my mom, his grandmother.
Oh, man.
And so that was the coolest thing. And then, we took him home that day. And then when I came back, I got out my husband's Audacity software and edited out from each of these 12 files, the okay, Daddy, you can talk now part, and the well, that's about all I know to say about that part. We had nice, clean stories right in the middle. So we had 12 good stories, and my techie husband put them on CDs and multiple CDs, and we sent them out with a letter on Saturday. And the letter I wrote just explaining to the people we were sending to, he was over here. We decided to do this, thought you'd enjoy a copy. So my sister and my brother got them. My niece and nephew got them. My son got one. And also my dad's niece and nephews in Texas who he was always real close to. And they were the children of his favorite aunt. So each of these people got a CD with a little letter saying, here's some stories you might enjoy. And that was the coolest thing. Now, as it happened, he died Christmas Eve, 1 month later. Yeah. And he and I had always had a big discussion about funerals and things. I don't want no damn funeral, right?
Right.
People sitting around crying and everything. I don't want that. And I said, well, Daddy, it's not for you, really. It's for everybody else. They need closure. And we went round and round about it. And then one day we were doing it again, having that same discussion. I said, well, you know what, Daddy? What? You won't be able to do a thing about it. And he stopped. And then he laughed and he said, well, then would you do me a favor, please, and wait a long time before you do it? We're talking about a life celebration, really, is what we were discussing.
Sure.
And I said, yep, we'll do that for you. So March 1st, the following year, we had that life celebration. It was a great day. And my husband set up in the back of the American Legion Hall where we were doing this. He set up a desktop computer and 3 or 4 chairs. And he took 7 of those 12 stories that were most likely to be of interest to other people. And he set it up. I think it was called Pro Show Gold, but I could be wrong. And he had a screen on there that listed the 7 story titles. You could click on one, and then it would go over, and my dad's voice would be telling that story while a black and white photo that had something to do with that story was displayed on the screen. And when he finished telling the story, it would pop back to the main menu again. So you could select a different story or walk away. It was beautiful. And then the story of how he met and married my mom, we made a big slideshow. Again, my husband made a big slideshow out of that, where we had a lot of photos of my mom and dad, chronologically scrolling while that story was being told. So that was a neat way to remember him.
Yeah, and for 2020, if you wanted to make a video and upload it directly to YouTube, you could do that too. I mean, as parents or siblings or whatever start getting older, I think those are things that would be absolutely treasured by family.
That's true. I've got something on my desktop right now, a shortcut to that very show of the 7 stories, And anytime I get to missing my dad, I just go listen to him tell me a story.
What a legacy.
Wonderful.
What a legacy to leave. Oh, my. That's so good.
Because there's something about a voice. It does bring you right back. It's like smells. It brings you back to a memory.
Exactly. Whether it was my grandmother talking to my son or my dad talking to my son and me, it snaps you right back.
Absolutely. I was thinking about this because we had talked last week, but we had some friends over Saturday, and we were sitting on the back porch eating, and it's somebody that we've only met a few years ago, and they asked us how we met. And we just kind of looked at each other, and we were going back and forth with different things and different stories. Sometimes she'd do, oh, he didn't do that. It was this. And, it was like, that would have been so awesome to have that exchange on video. I think my son or grandkids eventually, and that would be kind of a neat thing to have. I thought of you when all that went on. It's like, this is exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah, you could have that exchange again. You just have it videoed, just the two of you.
Yeah.
So how did you two meet? And there you go.
There you go.
And exchange back and forth.
And we argue for 10 minutes and it's over. Yeah.
Well, no, you had the argument already in front of your friends, so you'll kind of agree this time. It'll go smoother.
No, I just have a terrible memory is what it is.
Oh, well.
But that's fantastic. Fantastic. I love this idea. Gosh, I love this idea.
Yes, absolutely.
There's just no way we're grateful enough in our lives living the way we are today, even though there's so many positives, and we were talking about that too, but there's just so many things that kind of distract us. And there's certain exercises. I came across this the other day of they call it nerd neck, from looking down at your phone, because your neck can kind of like have this weird curvature. So that it's just awful.
And arthritic thumbs, don't forget, from texting.
Yes. So
scrolling through everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, but and there's no age for that. I mean, I know people in their 60s that sit there and scroll for seemingly an hour or two. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
I get disinterested after about 3 or 4 minutes. So I mean, I just don't know how you do it. But
with the pandemic, I just wonder if I was speaking with my wife Connie today about this, and that with the pandemic and everybody's on their screens and everybody's connected with their phones and all, are people just going to have enough of it and get sick and tired of this? Are they going to be burned out, in other words, looking at their screens? And are we going to go hopefully away from this, the time that we've got invested in our screens and burning out our eyes and our heads,
I know.
It just makes you wonder.
But well, the other thing that they're discovering during the pandemic is family time together. That's
Yes.
at the flip side of all of this.
mm-hmm.
And even though they're maybe getting a little overdosed on some of that, I've got a feeling when we come out of this social isolation thing that families are going to be a little bit closer than they were. And they might actually decide to have a family night where everybody sits down at the table together, maybe plays a game, works a puzzle after, just for the sake of being together as a family. So I see that coming out of this personally. But as far as the overdose on the smartphones and everything else, yeah, I think a little bit. They're going to want to get out to the park and walk around without nerd neck.
That's funny.
And I think they're going to start appreciating some of the things that were taken away from them, or that they eat that, or that they got a sample of and kind of liked, like family time.
Well, I think it'll be pretty soon where everything is going to get back to normal. Georgia was kind of like one of the leading states that started opening things up. And really, we haven't seen a resurgence in cases like a lot of the naysayers were saying was going to happen. I actually saw one post, and this is another negative of social media, is that people can try to become bullies. But I remember when somebody made mention of our governor kind of laxing some of the restrictions, and they said, well, we better order a bunch of body bags for Georgia. I'm like going, well, that's positive. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for sharing, right?
But it never came, it never came about, obviously. Things have been very successful here. So
good.
Yeah. So,
good.
You mentioned a lot of resources. Are there, and I've got a few of them here, Wordle.net, which is the
word
which
clouds.
is the word clouds, exactly. And then you have the automated transcription, which is TEMI.com. And then I did look up the napkin notes. The napkin notes was Napkin Notes Dad, if I remember right. Let me see here.
That's right. Right.
NapkinNotesDad.com. So and I was just kind of flicking through that. I didn't want to spend too much time looking at something while you were talking, but yeah, it's very, very, it looks like there's a lot of good stuff on there. So,
and of course, so many of these people, they've written books. These people, Napkin Notes Dad did write a book about it, and I read it and I loved it.
So you wrote this book in 2012, correct?
Right.
So other books that have maybe spawned from this, Lynette?
I do have some themed guides. I mean, the book is all inclusive. That's why I use the word comprehensive. But I have themed guides who get scared by a book that's half an inch thick, that honestly, they don't have to read the whole thing to write their letter. I'm going to say this right now. Let me tell you about that book first. It tells you how to write 157 types of letters of appreciation. Wow. But it's got a 19-page part one. I recommend you read that because it applies to any letter you'd write. And then after that, you flip to the chapter that applies, and even the section of the chapter that applies to the letter you're about to write. And then you flip back and forth to the appendix because it's got great tools in it too. It's got those 15 demographic lists of positive words. It's got a section on inspirational quotes that you can include at the top or the bottom of your letter, all organized by theme. And it's got another section on how to jumpstart your sentences in case you just can't make that first one come out. And that's good. It gives you a start, and then you go, oh, yeah, I could write kind of like that. That's what I meant to say. So those three tools in particular are good. So now, having said that, you can pick up a themed guide, like how to write a heartfelt letter of appreciation to an older friend or relative. It includes all of that 19 pages I mentioned earlier. Then it goes on to talk just about this type of letter. And then it includes the word lists for the demographic lists at the back that would apply to an older friend or relative. The older man, the older woman, maybe someone religious or spiritual, maybe a military service member. You might get those lists in that book. So these little themed guides, they're anywhere from about 60 to 80 pages long. And so you can buy those separately on Amazon, either as ebooks or printed books. Or if you're thinking, I want this one, and I want that one, and I want that one, well, by the time you select 3, you just bought the book. You might as well get the darn book.
Exactly. I was just looking at your website, goodwaystowrite.com, and that has a lot of resources and links where you can buy a lot of this stuff individually or whatever. Yeah, that's fantastic. The resources tab is got a lot of stuff. So
it really does.
Then you also have allmybest.com, correct?
Right. I'm a professional copy editor and proofreader of books that people have written. I can copy edit their manuscript. I can proofread the layout that their graphic designer produces after that manuscript is copy edited. And so those are the tasks that I do in my career with All My Best Copy Editing and Heartfelt Publishing. So that's allmybest.com. Lots of tips on there for authors who want to get their manuscript in good shape from a formatting standpoint, but it also fully describes how to work with a copy editor and how to work with me in particular, and so on and so forth. It's got FAQs.
That's tremendous. That's really good. And I'm blown away. I do audiobooks, and I for acx.com, and I'm blown away. I'm not a grammatical expert, but I can see where the sentence structure is not that great when there's run-on sentences, there's punctuation errors, I catch them. And as a service, I guess, and I'm not like you at all, but I'll highlight things and I'll send it back when the book's done. I'll send it back to what I found, because I look at every word of the book, of course, when I narrate, and I see that, and I'm thinking, these are pretty darn smart people, but yet they can't write, and think some things are not capitalized that need to be, and some things are capitalized that don't need to be, just little things. And I'm thinking, these are smart people. What they should have done is hire someone like you, to make sure that this, before it gets out in print,
Right. I'm too many of them are in a big hurry. One of the things that happens in copy editing is whether they read through the manuscript once or twice, the copy editor. I'm one who reads through once in order to provide a cost-effective rate, but I urge the authors, I said, you've got to consider this vital, that later on, after the layout is done, you need the proofreader to go through and find lingering content errors like the in the middle of a sentence, or 2 periods at the end of a sentence. The stupid stuff that sneaks through that I might have actually missed, or that when the author revised the book after I got done with it and they took it straight to layout, whoops, things sneaked into there. So they need a proofreader later on.
Yeah, they snuck in.
They should get one anyway, but they need one if they had a copy editor who only read through the manuscript once, not twice.
Right. Yeah, that stuff is easy to get past you. So, just the average reader like me, I could read that and your brain kind of fills in the gaps or corrects it as you go, and you don't even notice it. So, yeah.
Right, exactly. So
good stuff.
I perform an important function. It's also a lot of fun because I get to read a variety of things.
I guess that's what's fun about me narrating. I get to read books.
Yeah.
Get paid for it.
Hey, every now and then I'm reading one, I'm going, wow, they're paying me for this? Cool.
So do you narrate your own book, or how do you do that?
I just write. I'm one that just goes from brain to fingers to keyboard, but there are people who can narrate. And remember back to that Temi.com?
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, there
Narrate
you go.
the heck out of it, especially if you're not great at the keyboard. Narrate it, turn it into an MP3, and then mess with it. That can be a good tool for writers. I'd like to mention, too, going back to these letters of appreciation for just a moment, that people who are writing letters are thinking, oh, I'm a terrible speller. I know I am. I'd be so embarrassed to give a letter like this. Well, I'm going to suggest, I'm not going to say, hey, send me your letter and I'll fix it. I'm not going to suggest that. If the letter is one that you don't mind your best friend, who's really a whiz at grammar, spelling, and punctuation, have your best friend look at it and make some corrections for you without rewriting your words, if possible, and then give it back. You can get that kind of input before you do your final draft. And you should do final drafts. You shouldn't just say, I'm just ready to sit down and write that letter. Well, good. First draft. You know what they call it in the book trade?
What?
The SFD, the shitty first draft.
Oh,
You have to write it and don't pause. Just keep writing. Just the other tacky term is throw it all up. Ugh.
Yeah.
But
Puke,
just
puke
get
it on the
out
page.
there.
Yeah.
Get it on the page. And I would like to suggest, though, people who get kind of tongue-tied with the pen and can't make it come out onto the paper, the best tip, I think, is say, just pretend you're sitting across the table from the person you're writing to and just speak it and write like you speak. Best way to get your draft out there. Just
because if you do that, when you're reading it, you can almost hear them saying it. So, yeah.
Exactly. When I was first writing for publication a few decades ago, I got very tongue-tied with the keyboard. I just knotted up in my own sentences, and I just, come on, make it come out. It was excruciating, and it took me a long time to get that simple lesson into my head. Write like you speak. You can fix it later.
Very nice. Very nice. We really appreciated having you on here. I've learned so much, and I love it when we have a guest that I learn stuff from. This is, which is, they could be talking about anything, and I can learn stuff because I don't know a lot of stuff. So this is very, very good.
Very good. Very productive. We, I guess we're coming near the end of our time, Lynette. I'll tell you what an eye-opening thing. And to touch people, it's about touching people, and it's about reaching people. And you know what? You can also connect with people that this is a great segue. I mean, for someone you haven't spoke to for some time, to write them a personal, heartfelt letter, and that'll break the ice, right? And also family members. You've been disconnected for some time. Maybe a mother-in-law to a daughter-in-law, or a son, to a parent, or a son-in-law, something like that, or a daughter-in-law to a. So that's tremendous. What a great way to do this.
And it gets to be a fun habit too. You do it once and you see how good it feels to write, how good the other person feels to get, and you go, wow, I want to do this again.
Yes.
Yeah. It's almost an endorphin type. Yeah.
Did you say endorphin, Mike? When I said endorphin, that's tremendous. Yeah, we're too much alike now,
I know.
Maybe Lynette will write a book about us.
But
I'm doing that next week.
Yeah, that's
right. On the edge of your seat.
That could be another positive out of this whole pandemic, is that people have had quiet time where there's not so much noise and not so much busyness and not so much, distractions, where they actually can sit and be alone with their thoughts for a minute. And maybe they've come up with things that, I haven't talked to them in quite a while, or I haven't, I wonder how they're doing. And, anytime that you can have quiet time, you do think of things that you wouldn't think of. I hate being busy from morning till night. Another reason why I love being retired. So,
yes. Yeah, it's great. And I like that. I'm sorry about the pandemic. I really am. Yeah. But I'm glad about some of the positive outcomes that are occurring. And it's helping people slow down, take each day at a time. Don't necessarily plan long-term for the future. Just, it's a new day. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah.
Let's be a family together. Let me give so-and-so a call, or let me write a letter to this other person. I've finally got the time.
Or even a husband and wife.
Take the time. Absolutely.
Yeah, you look at each other. It's like, why did we start this so many years ago? And then you realize, this is. You can get back to the brass tacks of your relationship and go, this is why I fell in love with this person. This is, it's good. I think it can be very good. So
right.
Your website is Good Ways to Write. I'm sure you can order the book there. And is it available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all that?
All of the major online retailers have that book. Yes.
Okay. Do you have an email you want to give out if people want to?
Sure. Happy to. Lynette, Lynette, at goodwaystowrite.com.
Very nice. Very nice. And I heard all your friends just call you Lynette. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. Don't try to shortcut it and call me Lynn. That's not my name. Dagnabbit.
There's your text right there.
Next time we get together, I hope there is a next time, Lynette, that we want to hear about your experience with CBS News, Fox, NBC, and ABC, about your interviews there. And I'm sure that was interesting, to mix with those folks, right?
Yeah. Great.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, we appreciate having you on, and we will definitely do this again. Keep in touch with us. If you have our email address and my phone number or whatever, something comes up and you want to talk about more stuff, we would love to have you. You're a joy to have on the air. So
sounds good to me. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here and a lot of fun.
Well, good. That's the whole idea.
Cool. Thank you, Lynette. Right. And good. Amen. Right. Come back and join us.
Thank you. I will. All righty.
Have a great week. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Guests on the Afternoon Coffee podcast stay at the Real Rest Inns and Suites, the only 2-star hotel in the tri-state area with a don't ask, don't tell policy for snakes and other exotic pets.
This episode has been made possible by our awesome intro voice, Heather Foster. You can find out more about her at heatherfostervoice.com. All music has been provided and produced by Marble Planet Productions. You can hear more about them on Instagram at Marble Planet Productions. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can either email us at afternooncoffeepodcast@gmail.com or tweet us at afternoonjava.